Hello everyone, welcome back to day 20 of Polity Daily Drill. Let's begin. Question number 1. Which of the following parliamentary terminologies is or are correctly defined? First one is expunction. Deletion of words from the proceedings or records of the House for being defamatory or indecent by an order of the presiding officer. Absolutely correct. Expunction means the procedure wherein the presiding officer would remove those words which the House considers as unparliamentary, right? And those words will then no longer make it to the records of the House. This is called the word has been expunged, has been removed, and this is what is called expunction. Absolutely correct. Second statement, adjournment sine die or sine die. So, termination of the sitting of the House without any definite date being fixed for the next meeting. Now, adjournment or adjournment sine die is done by the presiding officer to end a sitting. And yes, that's absolutely correct that adjournment sine die or sine die means that once the presiding officer has ended the sitting for the day, the date of next meeting has not been fixed. This is also correct. Adjournment sine die is usually done on the last sitting of any session. Why? Because then officially the president is going to prorogue the session, and then the next session will be held as per the needs of the government and the orders of summoning of the session by the president. So the presiding officer may not know when is the date of next session, and hence he adjourns the sitting without fixing the date for the next meeting. Adjournment sine die. Third one, casting vote. The vote cast by the presiding officer in the case of an equality of votes on a matter. Absolutely correct. See, at any point of time in the House, the presiding officer does not get to vote in the first instance. However, if it so happens that there is a tie, let's say there are 150 people who support a bill and 150 people who oppose a bill. Now, in this situation, which we would call a tie, the presiding officer does get the chance to vote, and he can vote either ways. This is what you would call a tiebreaker or a casting vote. So all three statements are correct. C, all three is the right answer. Moving on to question number 2, which of the following is not the purpose of constituting cabinet committees? Not the purpose. So what are cabinet committees? Cabinet committees, CCs, are provided for under the provisions of Article 77 Clause 3, where the President can make rules for the more convenient transaction of business and also for the allocation of business amongst the ministers. And we have those rules called Government of India Transaction of Business Rules 1961, which provide for these cabinet committees. Now, let's read the options. A, to reduce the enormous workload on cabinet. Now, this is actually a purpose of the cabinet committees. So, this is a correct statement, hence cannot be the answer. B, to facilitate in-depth examination of policy issues and effective delegation. This is also one of the purposes of the CCs, hence cannot be the answer. To give federal character to policy making. Now, this is not a purpose of cabinet committees. This makes it an incorrect statement. Hence, C is the right answer. Let's look at D as well. To sort out issues and formulate proposals for the consideration of the cabinet. This is also a purpose. Hence, cannot be the answer. The answer is C. Moving on to question number 3. With reference to the President of India, which one of the following statements is not correct? So again, we have to focus on the incorrect statement. First one, more than 5 former VPs of India were later elected as the president. Now, this is a highly factual statement, extremely difficult to mark as right or wrong. Let's see the other statements first. B. Oath of the president is administered by the Chief Justice of India. Now, this is correct. Why? Because as per Article 60 of the Indian Constitution, the president is administered the oath by the CJI, and he does take the oath of what? To preserve, to protect, and to defend the Indian Constitution. This means what? This means the statement is correct, cannot be the answer. C. Both the president and the VP can resign from their office by giving resignation in writing to each other. This is also correct. The president, under the provisions of Article 56, and the VP under the provisions of which article? Article 67. They can submit their resignation to each other. So, statement is correct, cannot be the answer. The last one. No candidate has been elected unopposed in the presidential elections till date. Now, this is also a factual statement. So, we can eliminate these two, but ultimately you will have to know data and facts to find out the right answer. But yes, this seems to be an extreme statement, and this is actually incorrect also, making it the right answer. So, this has happened once in the 1970s. Neelam Sanjeev Reddy, who became the president in 1977 till 82, was elected unopposed. Why? Because 37 candidates filed their nomination paper, out of which 36 nominations were rejected. He was the only man standing, right? So, elected unopposed. Imagine a situation where all the UPSC forms are rejected and yours is the only accepted application form. You get rank 1 directly. So, just to clarify, please don't assume all these things. Please don't dream of all these things. This will never happen at all. So, rather focus on preparing for the examination. So, D is the answer. This means A is actually correct. And yes, it is correct. There have been 6 such situations where we have found that former VPs have gone on to become the president of the country, like S. Radhakrishnan, Dr. Zakir Hussain, V.V. Giri, R. Venkat Raman, and of course Shankar Dayal Sharma and K.R. Narayanan. So these 6 VPs later on became the presidents in our country. Hence, D is the right answer. Moving on to question number 4. Which of the following statements is correct regarding a bill in the state legislatures? A. The president has no role to play in the passage of a state's bill. This is wrong. Why? Because we have a concept under Article 200 which we call a referential veto. What is a referential veto? This means that on certain occasions, the governor can reserve a bill for the consideration of the president, referring the bill for central assent. So, A is wrong. B. State's bill can be reserved for the president, but once reserved, the governor has no role to play. This is actually correct. Once the governor sends the bill to the center, to the president, he or she has no role to play as far as the bill is concerned. Now that bill is between the center and the state legislature. So B is actually correct, hence the right answer. Let's look at C and D as well. State's bill can be reserved for the president, but the president must give assent. No, it is not at all mandatory for the president to give assent. So this is wrong. D. State's bill can be reserved for the president, but the president must give assent to the bill if it is passed again by the state legislature. This is also incorrect. Why? Because even if the state legislature passes the bill again, the president is not bound. Unlike in the case of the parliament, in this case, the president is not bound to give assent. So, B is the right answer. And the last question for today. Which of the following statements is or are correct with reference to the ordinance making power of the governor of a state. Ordinance making power for the presidents, it's Article 123, and for the governors it is Article 213. So it is a discretionary power. Number one, no. Ordinance making power is not a discretionary power. It is done on the advice of the Council of Ministers. Incorrect. In case of a bicameral legislature, bicameral, two houses. So there are certain states which have two houses, assembly and council. How many states? 6 states have two houses. So in case of a bicameral legislature, ordinance can be promulgated when the SLC, the State Legislative Council, is not in session. This is correct. When either house is not in session or both the houses are not in session, the governor can promulgate ordinances. This is right. Third one, it is wider than the legislative power of the state legislature. Not at all. The extent of the legislative power is what fixes the or defines the extent of the executive power. So how can the ordinance making power, which is just a temporary power to make laws, cross over or become wider than the regular legislative powers? So of course 3 is wrong. Hence, how many statements are correct? Only one, A, is correct. This brings us to an end of our discussion for today. Let's meet tomorrow. Till then, that's all for me. Jai Hind.